The Los Angeles Lakers are on the verge of pulling off what some are already calling the greatest heist in modern NBA history. And no, that's not just me saying it. This was the talk of the table on First Take this morning, where the entire discussion revolved around the newest developments involving Kawhi Leonard. I've got to tell you, the way this story is unfolding, it feels less like free agency news and more like an NBA scandal with massive consequence. Now, let's set the stage here. The report that dropped this week revealed that back in 2019, during Kawhi's free agency tour, there were requests made behind the scenes that went far beyond what the league allowed. We're not just talking about standard perks or negotiations. According to Sam Amick of The Athletic, Kawhi and his camp asked for everything from private planes to a house, to guaranteed endorsement money, even a partial ownership stake in a franchise. Think about that for a second. Ownership. Endorsements guaranteed. We're talking about demands that cut right through the heart of the NBA's collective bargaining agreement. Here's the key part. The Raptors tried to make some of those things happen. The Lakers flat out refused. They weren't going to cross that line. But Steve Ballmer and the Clippers? That's where the accusations come in. Reports say Ballmer and the Clippers were willing to play ball on some of those requests, opening the door for Kawhi to land with them instead of the Lakers or staying in Toronto. That's why this has turned into something much bigger than just free agency rumors. It's now being investigated as a potential rules violation, something that could shake the league to its core. And this is where things get absolutely wild. Because what's on the table, and this is straight from the league office, is the possibility of voiding Kawhi Leonard's contract with the Clippers. Let that sink in. If the NBA finds proof that he was incentivized illegally to sign team-friendly deals that gave the Clippers more flexibility, not only are executive suspensions in play, but Kawhi's contract itself could be wiped off the books. That's the kind of punishment that Adam Silver has made clear he's not afraid to hand down if it protects the integrity of the league. Now imagine what that means for the Lakers. If Kawhi suddenly becomes a free agent, even at this stage of his career, even with the injuries, the Lakers would instantly be one of the first teams in line to make a push. Think about the storyline. Back in 2019, the Lakers thought they had him. People were convinced he'd join LeBron and Anthony Davis. And then, out of nowhere, he went across the hall to the Clippers, a move that shocked the league. But now we're staring at a possible full-circle moment. Kawhi's deal with the Clippers could implode, and the Lakers could have another chance to land him without giving up a single asset. That's why, on First Take, Stephen A. Smith called it straight up. If this contract gets voided, the Lakers are about to rob the NBA, because that's exactly what it would feel like. A player of Kawhi's caliber, two-time Finals MVP, one of the best two-way forces in the game when healthy, suddenly available because the Clippers got caught bending the rules? That's not just a transaction. That's a seismic shift in the balance of power. And listen, nobody's saying this is guaranteed to happen. The investigation is ongoing. There are layers here. There are questions about how deep this goes, what the league can actually prove, and what punishment would realistically look like. But the fact that voiding a superstar's contract is even on the table tells you how serious this situation is. And for Lakers fans, it means one thing. The door to Kawhi Leonard, a door that once felt permanently closed, may not just be reopening, it may be blown wide open. When this story came up on First Take today, the panel couldn't stop dissecting the ripple effects of those negotiations back in 2019. And let's be clear about something. This isn't revisionist history. This is the reality of what Kawhi Leonard and his camp were trying to pull off. He wasn't just fielding offers, he was setting demand. He wanted ownership stakes, private planes, houses, guaranteed endorsement packages, things that would essentially give him not just superstar treatment, but power at a level the CBA was specifically designed to prevent. And here's where Jeannie Buss and the Lakers come into this. The Lakers were in those meetings, they heard the same pitches, and they said no. Jeannie Buss flat out refused to cross that line. She was not going to risk the integrity of the franchise or the league to secure Kawhi Leonard. In hindsight, that was the right move. Because as tempting as it must have been, imagine Kawhi alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis. It would have come at the cost of violating the very rules the league is built on. And Genie didn't budge. Contrast that with Steve Ballmer and the Clippers. According to reports, they were far more willing to play ball, and that's what has brought us here. Because if those incentives, those illegal perks, were a factor in Kawhi's decision to sign with the Clippers, then suddenly, we're not just talking about free agency, we're talking about violations that could void his entire contract. And that's exactly why the league is investigating. Now, Stephen A. put it perfectly on the show. This isn't about whether Kawhi Leonard is still great. This is about whether the Clippers bent the rules to steal him from the Lakers and Raptors. And if the NBA proves that, the punishment has to be severe. And he's right, because if this contract gets voided, the floodgates open. Kawhi would become available, and guess who's standing right there, ready to swoop in? The Los Angeles Lakers. Think about the alternate reality here. If the Lakers had agreed to those illegal demands back then, Kawhi might already be wearing purple and gold. He may have joined LeBron and AD in 2019 instead of Paul George and the Clippers. But Jeanie Buss chose the long-term health of the franchise over a quick win. And now, that decision might pay off in the wildest way imaginable. Because if the Clippers are stripped of Kawhi, the Lakers could get another chance, this time without breaking a single rule. Of course, the health question came up on First Take too. Kawhi's availability has been a real issue. He played just 37 games last season, and his injuries have defined the second half of his career. Max Kellerman made the point that even if Kawhi becomes available, the Lakers would have to weigh the risk of signing a player who simply hasn't been able to stay on the floor. And that's a fair argument. But at the same time, as Kendrick Perkins reminded everyone, when Kawhi is healthy, he's still one of the most dominant two-way players in the game. Finals MVP, lockdown defender, offensive assassin. Those guys don't just fall into your lap, so this becomes the ultimate what-if scenario. What if the NBA really voids this contract? What if the Lakers suddenly get their second shot at the guy they thought they had 6 years ago? And what if this time, the stars align? That's why people are calling it the biggest robbery in NBA history. Because for the Lakers to say no to Kawhi in 2019, only to potentially get him now because their rival cheated, that's poetic. That's full circle. That's Hollywood. And just when you think the show couldn't get any more heated, they pivoted. They talked about the other ripple effects in the league. What would Toronto think, knowing Kawhi wanted $15 million in extra endorsement money just to consider staying? What would the rest of the NBA say if the Lakers end up benefiting from the Clippers' downfall? Because make no mistake, if this happens, it won't just be a Lakers story. It'll be an NBA earthquake. Then, as the discussion started winding down, there was a quick check-in on Luka Doncic. News broke about a minor injury scare during Eurobasket, and for a moment, fans held their breath. Luka left the game briefly, but he returned, dropped 40-plus points, and afterwards said he was fine, just a little sore, just needs treatment. That's a relief, because the last thing the league needs right now is a Luka injury on top of this Kawhi chaos. Luka's already gearing up for what could be an MVP-level season, and the entire table agreed. As long as he stays healthy, he's going to keep putting up absurd stat lines. But let's not lose sight of the headline: Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers, and the possibility of a voided contract. The fact that we are even having this conversation shows just how explosive this situation is. And the fact that the Lakers are sitting in the perfect position to take advantage of it? That's why Stephen A. called it what he did. The Lakers aren't just preparing to compete this season, they might be preparing to steal the NBA.